Good afternoon, friends. Today, in this second lecture of mine, I shall be taking up the structure and the title of A Dance of the Forests. I do not know whether time will permit me to focus on both the aspects, but let us start with the structure of the play. Now the structure and the title. So if it is possible, I shall discuss both. If it is not possible, if the time doesn't permit, I shall be focusing only on the structure of A Dance of the Forests. The first thing that I want to point out is that by structure, we do not mean something which is conventional, something which is regular. What is structure? Do we mean to discuss the play on the model of Saussure's structural linguistics? No, we do not. Rather, I shall be concentrating on Aristotle's term dynamis. So look at this term, dynamis. By dynamis, Aristotle suggests the particular working or emotional power that the composition is designed to effect. So by structure, I do not mean the combination of the component parts of the play, because if we do that, I think the reading of this play will fail, because after all, A Dance of the Forests is a different kind of a play. In A Dance of the Forests, we find that there are two parts, and we are reminded of Beckett. In our earlier lecture, if you remember, I pointed out to you that Soenka came in touch with Beckett during his study in England. And let us remember Beckett's play Yes, look at Waiting for Godot by Beckett. In Waiting for Godot, we have two acts. It is a two-act play. So Act 1, Act 2, the point and the counterpoint, or perhaps Act 1 and Act 2 running parallel to each other. Here also, in A Dance of the Forests, we have two parts. But the two parts are designed by Swainka in a different way. How different? I shall try to show right now. There are certain sequences. Apparently, these are loosely arranged sequences. But these sequences gradually build up the emotional effect of the play. How? I shall try to show you right now. In section 1, we have the representatives of the past, the dead man and the dead woman, but with them we have living men as well, Rolla and Adeneby. Adeneby is the town councillor and Rolla is the prostitute. Now, dead man and the dead woman, they appeal to the living men, the representatives of the living world. And I shall read from the text at least two sentences. The first sentence of the play, the dead man speaks, "Will you take my case, sir?" And then the dead woman repeats the same, "Will you take my case?" But the representatives of the living are callous. They do not bother about these. The people who were invited to come. And later on, they will also say, "We were invited to come here, but nobody listens to us." So this is section 1. The dead and the living trying to interact, but no interaction. In the second section,
Start.
in section 2, as I was telling you, well, we have the representatives of the living world, Rolla, Demok, Adeneby, and Obenji. Now, in the second section, we find that the people, the living people, they are trying to interact with one another. And I shall be quoting two sentences. First, I shall be quoting from Demok, and I shall be quoting from Adeneby. Adeneby tells them all, "Have you no sense of history?" And Rolla says, "What is history?" And Demok says, "I did not know what it was all about." So they're talking about the sense of history, the sense of the past. So they talk about the past. They talk about the glory of the past, having no sense of history. So is it a fact that past to them is only an illusion of something glorious? Whether the glory was really there or not is a different thing. But they think of the glory. They think that there existed a glory. And in that thought, they get some happiness, some complacence. But as this gentleman, Adeneby, says, "Have you no sense of history?" And Rolla very bluntly states, what history? So, if the first section is a reminder of history, the second section is an open statement that the living have no sense of history. In the third section, we move on to a different domain, the forest dwellers. And we have these three, Muret, Ishoro, and Ogun. Muret is a tree imp or a tree demon. Ishoro is a cult spirit. And Ogun is the patron god of the carvers. In my last lecture, I told you that Ogun is full of ambivalence. Ogun represents creation, and in a way, Ogun represents destruction. Dimok is the carver, the artist, and he creates his art by destroying nature. So Ogun, the patron of Dimok, contains within him, possesses within him the instinct of creation and also the instinct of destruction. Now, this Dimok has ravaged a tree which is a sacred tree for the Africans, the Araba tree. And he has made the totem the symbol of the victory of the Africans. The Africans have become free, and therefore they will have a celebration. And the totem for the celebration is created by Dimok out of the Araba tree. So cutting of the tree, that is symbolic. Deforestation. In fact, any kind of art, whether it is painting or sculpture or poetry, any kind of art involves in it a certain kind of destruction. And that is pointed out over here. Therefore, we can say that in an indirect way, in section 3, we have the theme of deforestation. Once again, what is the first section? The first section is an interaction between the living and the dead, but there is no interaction at all. But because the representatives of the living world are unable to understand the past, they are unable to understand the history, although they talk of history. In the second section, we have 4 representatives of the living world. What is history? Do we have any sense of history? But they do not know what is history. In the third section, we have the forest dwellers, and the theme of deforestation comes up. How trees are destroyed to create art. And well, I may perhaps at this point connect Dimok with a character in Rabindranath Tagore's play Muktadhara, the waterfall. In Rabindranath Tagore's Muktadhara, or the waterfall, Vibhuti has created or made or designed a dam, an embankment, which will not be beneficial to a section of people. And in the process of making the dam or the embankment, a number of people had to die. Well, we shall see that Dimok also, the Dimok's work also involved a death. the death of one of his apprentices. So Democ was creating something great, something beautiful. But was it really, or would it be really beautiful for the mankind? Democ did not know. The other people did not know. In fact, we never know whether our efforts, our work will create something which is of lasting goodness. If our work involves depletion of forest or depletion of nature, in section 4, we have the theme of corruption. People are callous towards pollution, towards the gradual killing of nature. And there is a reference to a modern lorry and an accident. And the chimney of Jericho. The chimney of Jericho emits powerful petrol fumes, and the people are callous about that. So thus civilization is gradually being destroyed by the callousness and the corruption of the living people. In section 5, we find past is being repeated. And Democ is the first man who understands this. Democ understands that ruler was trying to entice him physically. And suddenly, Democ realizes that this ruler is actually a character who has come over from the past to the living present. She is Madame Tortoise. So that ruler is Madame Tortoise, the same character, the same feature, the same effort to seduce a man. And Democ understands that. In section 6, we find Democ's sense of guilt. Because Democ's apprentice, Oremol, is dead. Oremol went to the top of the tree to help Democ in shaping the totem, suddenly fell down and died. But why or how did he fall down? Was it Democ that pushed him down? Was it Democ who deliberately wanted to kill him because he wanted to have the credit of making the totem all by himself? Was it? Was it he? Democ doesn't remember. And he suffers from a strong sense of guilt. Well, you know, this is section 7. And in section 7 we find that Adenabi makes a remark. The totem looks pagan. Now what is the meaning? What does he mean by pagan? Does he mean that it is something which is not compatible with the spirit of African religion, the spirit of the beliefs of the Africans, their particular, their specific beliefs about their own gods. So what does Atenabi suggest? Does it suggest that Democ acted against the spirit of the nation, the spirit of the people? Now, perhaps we can go beyond the superficial suggestion. Democ being an artist, Democ is an intellectual, Democ is a thinking man, Democ is a man of imagination, and perhaps an artist alone can give us a new clue to a new world. So the totem looks pagan, may not be taken as a criticism, but may be taken as an appreciation of Democ's effort to do something new. And in section 8 we find that the forest spirits are repelled by the stench of the fuel. And the dead woman says something which is very, very relevant. The dead woman says, 100 generations has made no difference. I was a fool to come. A very cogent, a very relevant remark. 100 generations, well, mankind will remain the same. And perhaps it is suggested that mankind will never change. The same mistakes they will go on committing. The same sense of guilt they will be subjected to. And the same frustration, the same despair they will suffer. Actually, the ritual is arranged to welcome the dead, but the dead are repelled. And in fact, in a way, they are refused by the living world to stay there. They are called by the living world thieves. So when there is a cry for looking at the past as an inspiration, the question is, will that be a feasible world? Do the present generation have any respect for the past? And with this, the part 1 of the play ends, and we proceed to part 2. In the second part, once again, the theme of deforestation is repeated, and there Ishuru expresses grievance against Democ. It was Democ who, in an unscrupulous way, cut the top of the Arabe tree, the sacred tree, which is a symbolic work. Cutting of the tree is a symbolic work. It's not one tree alone. It suggests the massive deforestation, the process of massive deforestation, which ultimately will ruin the world. And then sequence 2, well, is almost a flashback. Or can we call it a play within a play? In sequence 2, we find the reenactment of all that had happened at the court of Mata Karibu. And there we find, in fact, there is no difference between the past and the present. How Madame Tortoise was conspicuous for her greed, her covetousness, and her licentiousness. How the captain refused to fight for the king. He announced that he was ready to fight and give his life for the country or the people. But he would not fight for the king, who just wanted to fulfill his lust of gold. And here also we find how the court poet, actually the earlier version of Democ, was consciously or unconsciously responsible for the death of his apprentice. So section 2, in fact, is a flashback or a play within the play. And in section 3, we find quarrel between Ishuro and Ogun, their adversities. And Ishuro blames Ogun because Ogun is the patron of Dimmock. So this is sequence 4. Well, sequence 4 is in quick successions. It has 4 divisions. First we find the grievance of the forest spirits. All the forest spirits, they express their grievance against mankind, the callousness of mankind in destroying the forest. And then we find the human characters appearing in masks. Characters like Rolla, Dimmock, Adenby are all masked. And then comes the half-child. The half-child is a symbol of future. The future of Africa is symbolized by the half-child. How can the half-child survive? How can Africa or Nigeria survive? That is the question. And all the spirits, the foretell disaster. The disaster will be coming because the half-child also symbolizes the unfulfilled desires of man. And all the spirits, they foretell the destruction or the disaster of the mankind in general. Now all the spirits, well, there are so many spirits, and I'll just name them. These spirits are there. The spirits of the palm tree, the spirit of darkness, the spirit of pachyderm, and the spirit of rivers, precious stones, and also the sun. So all these spirits, they come and they foretell the disaster. And finally come the 3 triplets. The human child cut in 3 parts, and these 3 parts come and they announce the darkness that lies ahead. And the darkness can be dispelled only by the positive spirit of the Nigerian people. Thus we find that the structure is simply a pattern of some loosely connected or apparently disconnected sequences presenting characters. The characters are not characters of our virtual reality. Some of them look like full-fledged human characters, but there too we find that each character is a repetition of the past. Therefore, we may come to the first remark that we made about the structure, quoting Aristotle. As Aristotle says, what Aristotle says about structure, we may refer to that once again. Aristotle says structure is dynamis, the particular working or emotional power that the composition is designed to effect. So the emotional power that the composition is designed to effect is definitely given by the apparently loose sections. Now, students, once again, I remind you that if we search for a well-made plot here, that will be our mistake, because it's not the story that we should seek to find here in this play. It is the emotion, and through the emotion, the message that has been conveyed in the play, and the patterning has been done in a new way, as we have tried to show. Thank you very much. Next time. Sure.